you know, with the grand end being complete in Geats, I was just like, I wonder what we're gonna get in this episode. This episode was so full of dialogue, like pushing everything forward a little bit from everybody, and I was just like taking notes like I normally do it. Like I don't do detailed notes, I do bullet points, and I was just like, this is a lot of notes. Like I'm gonna tell you guys right now, like I apologize for the length of this video because this is a lot to talk about in a good way though, because like man, like I said, the grand end happened. We find out Sumeri's still there. Everyone else is gone, and that everyone still has their memories. And Sumeri's back because Ace removed all the viewers and management when he recreated this world, and he kept her around because he needs Sumeri's help with running his DGP. And I'm like, ooh, your own DGP? I mean, he does have, the goddess of creation powers and this and that. So I'm like, maybe he'll fulfill wishes, which we find out isn't the case. Like, no one, like, you compete in this DGP, you ain't getting nothing. You're on your, like, you just, well, we don't even know really, other than the fact that Jamato are still here, which I will get into, that there is no, I don't know, it's just weird. There's no actual DGP, but it's around. Um, I do like this episode had a lot of character interactions with Nayan and Sarah in their civilian forms. That's one of the things I've always said. It's like I do enjoy the civilian aspect of the story of this show. There are times where we get little glints and nothing's really fleshed out, but a lot of time was spent with the civilian lives of everyone, and I really enjoyed that a lot. I mean, even, because Nan and Sarah, they're like, we still have our memories. And even though they can't be riders anymore, they shouldn't because, Buffa destroyed their ID cores. And I was like, well, that that is a good question. um, and then also, we even got some interaction with Michinaga and Keiwa where Michinaga just shows up at his apartment and I'm just like, how do you know where he lives? Did he dox him? And then obviously even Keiwa's was like, hey, like how do you know where I live? And he just like brushes it off, and they don't even go over that. They just talk about like how they basically everyone's questioning why they still have their memories, but they don't have their drivers. And the main reason why this happens is because Ace wants everyone to have their memories, remember their desires, and remember everyone that was lost in the DGP. But he's he wants riders should get to decide their own fate, not by some admins up in the clouds. And he even says, because we see a box of the little mission boxes, and we see Buffa and Tycoon's ID cores, and he said, there's others he wants to help, but the broken ID cores never came back, and as of right now, this is like the limit of his power. So I'm just like, well, does he get more power? Does he learn how to like get more? And then we find out, because Ace gets hungry, he gets the Goku level hunger, mind you, like King Kai planet, like eating all the food hunger, and Sumeri's just feeding him and feeding him, and we find out through Sumeri that using the goddess's powers, they require a large sum of the retired player's desires as an energy that they call gleam. And because there's limits to what you can do on your own without this gleam, so he's hungry. And I'm like, all right, makes sense. I'm glad the Jamato this time around aren't the same Jamato style that they were before. They asked visually wise, but from a I guess a creation side of things, because we get a skate park. A cop comes up, be like, "Why, you guys skateboarding?" Like, we're at a skate park. This is like the designated area, and he turns into a Jamato, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem like before where the Jamato could take the form of humans because he was talking properly. And yes, the Jamato were always evolving, but I don't think they were that good. And listen, listen, we find out Jamato that aren't Jamato don't leave when the Grand End happens. Any of the Jamato that survive end up turning into like the creatures and this and that form like urban legends and like the myths of evil spirits. And in my head, I'm just like, okay, realistically speaking here, we could be living in one of those eras where the DGP existed, because this would then explain Loch Ness Monster, the Chupacabra, Bigfoot, possibly aliens, but not really. It would explain the issues I had with season 2 of Heroes. This would explain why CBS canceled Jericho, which it shouldn't have, and I'm never going to forgive CBS for that. Like, we could blame the Jamato on all this. But being an escape park and this and that, we got, okay, SD Shin Kamen Rider Rumble. Great Kamen Rider game. It's fun. It's a little beat 'em up. We haven't gotten a new like Kamen Rider game since Memory of Heroes, and I'm just like, Bandai, Toei, Namco, we just got it right here in front of us. We can have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Geats Edition. I would play that so much. I would. It would be so much fun. Like, but I digress. We're going off the rails and off topic right now, and I apologize. Okay. The Jamato showing up. Sumeri is ready to like go. Let me go bring Keiwa and Michinaga some drivers. They become riders. Ace just stops her. Because they have to decide and pick, and basically they have to decide if they want to be riders again. He's not going to force anybody. And I'm like, okay, so basically we just have Ace as a rider. He shows up, he makes quick work of this Jamato, even though it did kind of do some sweet skateboard moves to, avoid some attacks. But like I said, these Jamato are different. This wasn't a Jamato taking human form, because when he defeated the Jamato, a tiny Jamato came out of its head and then burst in the flames. And I was just like, is this like a Men in Black situation where like they had the humans like around and then like they open up the face and there's like a little alien piloting it? That's the first thing that popped in my head. No pun intended on the pop in the head part. But the Jamato main body returned to being the cop, and I was like, okay, so this is going to be an interesting element now going forward, because like it's kind of like a hybrid of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers type of deal, except they're not duplicating the bodies. They're just, or no, this is more like The Faculty, which is a great alien invasion film, okay, from the like late 90s, early 2000s. Like, great film, by the way. Go check it out. It's amazing. But apparently Midget Naga and Keiwa just know where Ace is, because they find him and they question about why he's the only rider. And then he explains, the DGP is sort of going on, but he's the god of creation now, and this is his DGP. And he even asks them, hey, do you want to enter in? But you're not going to get anything. Like I said earlier, like, you get no reward in this, okay? But like, if you want to enter in, you can enter in. This is, like I said, the civilian interactions, I'm really shocked, honestly, because of how most of these episodes have gone so far for the last 38 episodes, that we got so much time really showcasing Sarah and Neon so much, because, Neon is apartment hunting on, and she finds her own place finally. And, she's even explaining to Sarah, she's never lived alone. She doesn't know, really what she's doing. And Sarah's even like, I'll help you, whatever you need, let me know. And even to the point where she's like, so when does the furniture get here? And Sarah's like, wait, what? You actually have to go out and like pick this stuff up and buy it yourself. And then she's like, you know what? I'm going to help you. Let's go get this done, this and that. And I was like, okay, so it's obviously didn't happen in this episode, but I was like, man, we had a missed opportunity on like a nice montage, shopping, trip, wholesome scenes, which, we got a few. I mean, this was kind of like wholesome, but you know what I mean. I guess off camera, Keiwa explained everything to them. And I was like, oh, that would have been a cool, like something cool to see. But so they already know, like, hey, Ace is basically the god of creation, new DGP, everything else. So they're up to date on everything. And I'm like, all right. So I knew he was going to be around. Punk Jack is back still. Obviously, because he is from this era, but he was former DGP staff. He offers any help he can, do and contribute with. And Ace even, there's like their banter back and forth I have enjoyed since Punk Jack came back, or when, if you want to say his name. And he would says, like, Ace just flat was like, yeah, no, it's unpaid though, we're not giving you any money. And Ace even pulls up, someone is pulling the strings of the Jamato. And even Punk Jack agrees, because he said, upper management, they're not gonna leave so easily. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go look into things. And I was like, this whole Punk Jack being like the investigator to find information is an intriguing uh role for him, given how he was introduced as that as like this guy in a band who was a slacker who couldn't hold a job and had no money, and he basically was forced into being in the DGP by his grandfather. I still have to watch the Punk Jack special, by the way. That reminds me, I should probably watch that this week at some point. So a lot of stuff from the DGP, and I haven't brought up in reviews, or I've cut them out of my reviews. They might still be in there. I don't remember most of the videos I do, honestly. I was always curious about Neon's father and what would happen if the Grand End fully went through, because, you know, he's the guy who was, you know, keeping everything hush hush from the public, and he sees a news report that there's a monster in the city and it's a Jamato. So he calls his connect at like the news station or police or whatever, and he's like, why isn't this being suppressed? And he's flat out told the guys, just like, listen, you don't have the DGP anymore, you don't have this power to grant wishes, so why should we help you? You have nothing to offer us, basically. And the guy even gives him a little heads up, like, hey, if you have any incriminating like anything, you should probably start, you know, destroying it. And we find out that with a search warrant and this and that, he's being investigated live on the news because it's broadcast on a screen and Neon sees it. And I was just like, okay. And once again, we see another person turn into a Jamato. And this is the third time, because while Kay was applying to jobs and put Kamen Rider as his work experience, another person turns into a Jamato, and he actually sees the little tiny Jamato jump onto the chest of a person. Obviously, Neon's not a Kamen Rider, but she still jumps in to fight and try and save and get people out of the way. It doesn't turn out the way it's supposed to, because Ace makes the save. Same with Keiwa. He's, you know, fighting the Jamato, helping people escape. And I was wondering when it was going to happen. Kekura shows up. And I didn't realize this. In all these episodes and all the Kekura-Keiwa interactions, Keiwa never saw Kekura in as like human avatar form. Because even Kei was like, who are you? And he had to crouch down and do the frog pose and say his name. And we find out finally what his wish specifically said. And as I said before in my comments and other reviews of that, people have said kind of what they've seen off of screenshots. But fully, it says the right to stay in this world until I've gotten my ideal laughs. And I was like, okay. And then instantly I was like, well, we're probably going to, and before I even thought about Baroba, we got Baroba approaching Michinaga. And even, you know, he questions why she's still here. And we find out her wish was the right to stay in this world until I've witnessed my ideal despair. And she's trying to go Michinaga into becoming a Kamen Rider again, just like Kekura was towards Keiwa. And she even says, well, the Jamato are evolving. And he's like, what do you mean? You know, and she's like, I'm not going to tell. Why would I tell it to someone who's not a Kamen Rider? And I'm like, ooh, this manipulation. I was like, I'm curious, because how are they evolving? And we find out we have another new mysterious character who's in like a little mini shed lab area growing little baby Jamatos. And he claims that this is his parasite game and it has now commenced. And I'm like, well, it makes sense, parasites. I was like, okay, so it is more like the faculty than Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And we see a cool scene where Ace is, you know, henshined and Nan's behind him, and they're being approached by civilians shuffling along, and they all turn into Jamato. And I'm like, this is a good spot to end this episode, right? Nope, because we see another mysterious figure looking over the city, and Samas appears. She's still here. And she says that, you know, that gives them a task, like they need to bury Geats and complete the postponed Grand End. So the Grand End was not fully completed, and he removes his mask, and it's another new guy, and he says that, you know, it's time we made Sumari our second generation goddess. So I'm under the assumption the reason why the Grand End didn't finish is because Sumari's still there. They can't continue a DGP without a goddess of creation. But I think Sumari now is the main piece of everything going on for this arc, because they obviously, the DGP need Sumari because she's going to be the next goddess of creation. So they're not going to leave without her. My thing is the fact that the Grand End didn't finish. I'm worried that this means Gene's gonna come back. I don't hate Gene as a character. I just think he siphoned so much time on screen that could have been used in certain arcs to push other characters' growth forward. Like from the preview of next week, we're finally getting a nice Kawa character growth situation. But yeah, this was honestly, I'm not gonna lie, this was a really good episode. I like this episode. I feel like I'm in the minority where I'm just like, hey, the more character development we get and conversations on civilian stuff compared to just an episode of just nonstop fighting, which I'm okay with. I love the action in Geats, so I like fighting. But sometimes you need episodes like this, especially if we're going into the end game. I would be hard pressed to say it would be nice to if we had, because given the preview, it seems like we're gonna get a lot more fighting next one. I wouldn't mind if we got a little bit of fighting and more of this style from a pacing standpoint, because this seemed like longer than 21 minutes. Like it felt like a really long episode. I would like another episode or two like this and then get into the main like bread and butter of all the action. Give me this mystery of what's going on with this parasite game and everything else. Like that would be cool, but that's not what we're getting because the parasite game literally is the name of the episode, the next episode. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think of this. I'm assuming this is gonna be a little mini arc going into like the final stretch. But let me know what you thought. What are your theories in the comments below? That's it for the episode. If you made it through all this, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.